Yes, hello. What am I doing wrong now?
Fantastic. Fantastic. Hey, Kay.
Hey, Dele, now.
I'm fine. And you?
I'm good. Alhamdulillah. I'm good.
It's so good to see you. Eh, you are
Yeah,
looking good in white.
I'm trying to. I'm trying to be like
White, white is for peace.
you.
So it promises to be a peaceful interview. So we are live right now, simultaneously on Instagram and Facebook.
Okay.
And we're working on spaces. We should be on it in the next second or so. And then, yeah, just a minute. Spaces. Okay. So I would like to welcome you. This is a very, very rare interview. I know you hardly do interviews. Can you hear me, Kola?
I hear you loud and clear. Yes, I do.
Okay, good. Yes, this is a very, very rare interview. And for me, it's a great honor and privilege to have you.
Thank you.
And I like the fact that 2 days ago, when we last spoke, you told me I could ask anything. I should just feel free that, you didn't want anything like Orijo, So I'll start with our usual tradition by asking you to introduce yourself. I know everybody knows you, but just try to capture your trajectory, your life story from birth to now, because some people might think, Abiola, he was born into wealth and everything. So tell us from the very beginning.
Thank you. I'm Abdul Latif Kola Wale Abiola. Born into humble beginnings to the late Bashar Wenke Abiola and Elijah Simbiat Abiola. I'm one that has been, like I said, into humble beginnings. And over the years, I've been further humbled by events in my life. And that makes me what I am today. That more than describes me as to who I am and what I am and why I do what I do today.
I would like you to take it from going to school, your primary school and all that.
Okay, came back from England, started at University of Lagos, staff school, Akoka. At that point, my late mom was a lecturer at Yabatech, and my father was an accountant. And she was teaching back then textile design. And I remember I used to grab my young ones and we would walk all the way from Unilag to Yabatech to wait for mom to finish before we could go home. So that for me has never left me. I also, thank God, I have very humble parents. They came equally from very humble backgrounds, and they never allowed us to forget who we are and where we're coming from. From there, I went to Baptist Boys High School, secondary school. I did a bit there. I was living with the principal back then, and then I moved from there to Ibadan Grammar School for a semester. Came back on holidays. I had a severe jaundice. I couldn't go back, and then I ended up being home for 6 months because recuperating from my jaundice, and then did a term, I think, at Maryland Comprehensive Secondary School before my mom shipped me all the way to Aito at Form 3. And I was in Aito until I finished secondary school, went to San Francisco State from there, bit of Berkeley, and then to New York, Adolpha University. I have a master's in finance, an MBA in business administration, and that's me. What else can I say about myself?
Well, what were the things that molded you? I know Daddy must have been extremely busy, so you probably stayed more with Mommy. Could you tell us some of the things that shaped your life?
I thank God for her. I thank God for her, for all 5 of us especially. She would always tell you, you're not MKO's kids, you're Symbion's kids, especially when Dad became polygamous. And as a result of that, the discipline was extra. She was very religious. She made sure that we were religious ourselves. And she was the Taliban of the house, really. She took no nonsense. But you see, with her, the minute you are able to convince her and you get her on your side, she's with you 100%. But that takes a lot of doing. But I owe a preponderance of who I am today to her. It's a shame that she didn't live long enough to see us achieve, but at least by the time she left, the youngest of us, Wura, was doing a PhD. So I think in that respect, I think she at least saw us to a point where we could handle things on our own going forward. I think last Wednesday was 29 years she left. And like I said, I've been one that's been humbled by events over my life. And that's one of the key events. She died at 54. I lost my daughter. I lost my father. I lost Yinka also. And it's just one that just has formed me to be careful and very, very deep in my thoughts before I do anything. So I don't just jump at it, but once I do it, I think I took a bit of that from my mom. Once I decide this is what I want to do, I do it. But it takes a while and a lot of considerations. Yeah. My father, on the other hand, was my friend.
Okay.
He was my buddy. He was my friend. We connected, and we connected so well. I mean, they say when you look so much like your father, you make enemies of yourselves. That's certainly not in my case. And I think we both owe that equally to my mom, because I think it was by design. She made it a point to make sure that that friendship was there, to the point that my father couldn't really do anything without Kola. And in its own little way, it became a problem for me within the family also. But that's what it is. Like, what can you do? And I'm so glad that I came home. For example, she made me come home early just to be around him. Like she knew she wouldn't be around long enough, or he wouldn't be around long enough. My father was 60 when he passed away. Despite all he had achieved, it was just only 60. And if I didn't come home early enough and be with him and understand him and see things and understand things, and see how he worked, I'm not sure I would have regretted it all my life. But she made sure you came home. She made sure you're always with him. She made sure that understanding we had from when I was little, nothing came in the way of that. So I'm thankful. We're both all thankful to have equally for that also. So, like I say, particular DC, that's what they always tell my dad, but it's a design created by Soviet.
Yeah. Now, your father started and grew so many businesses. Right. Could you tell us some of the businesses? Because I knew you were involved in some of them. Could you tell us?
Well, I was
one by one.
Okay. It all started with ITT, which he was a part owner of. He was an employee but became a part owner of. From that came RCN, Radio Communications Nigeria. From that came the bakery, Wonderloaf, came Concord Press, came Abiola Farms, came Concord Airlines, and Abiola Publishing also came from that. African Concord, which you know a lot about. Basically, that's it. Yes, I was involved in a lot of it. A lot of them had been around before I got back, so it took me all my service years in Zaria to go back and forth to restructure and reorganize a lot of those entities. And I needed to clean them up prior to the arrival of my other brothers so they can step in and take it to better and bigger heights. And unfortunately, including Summit Oil, as a matter of fact. And unfortunately, it all collectively became a victim of political of the whole June 12th and electoral history. I mean, we all know what happened back then. But more importantly, the government fought us, with all their might, and the businesses itself became casualties of that. I'm not sure anything survived that, actually. Because at the height of it all, we were the largest employer in this country. At the height of it, we had offices in every state in this country. Be it Concord, be it Airline, be it RCN, be it ITT. MK was, like I've always told you, and I've said it in the past, it was well ahead of its time. Not talk about football or sports, Abiola Babes and all those things. It was way ahead of its time. And unfortunately, we paid a price for that also. Yeah.
Now, let's talk about Summit Oil International.
Yes, please.
Before I ask my question, let me thank you for giving me the opportunity to be the first to handle the public relations for that country many, many years ago. And I remember 1991, 92, and we used to fly out there, go to the oil field and all that. Thank you so much for believing in me. What happened to Summit Oil International? Because at that time, I'm sure you must have spent, when money was money, you must have spent about 400 million naira or more. But suddenly, I don't know what happened. It seems politics got in the way.
Yeah, the politics, well, we were the first indigenous company to drill and find oil. And that's when we launched it, and you were, like you said, very involved in that launch. It created a lot of excitement, not just for the family, but for the industry as a whole, being wholly indigenous. And with everything MKO, he's a strong believer in indigenous talent. So it was a wholly Nigerian affair. Now, that also extended to the equity and the funding of that operation. Now, when the election was annulled, the license was cancelled. We had 2 concessions back then. It was cancelled. We started with 1 that was split into 2, and we paid for the second one fully. And it's funny how things work at times, but that's a story that I'll probably get to another time. We paid for both, and when the then government of General Abacha came in, cancelled license. We waited till he left office. When President Obasanjo was sworn in, we got back both licenses. And we had to do that by reclassifying the concession. What do I mean by that? We are a Niger Delta-based concession, which gives you 5 years of exploration time to convert to an oil mining license from an oil prospecting license. Now, by the time General Abacha had left, passed away and left, there was no way we could still run that concession under that regime, the Niger Delta regime. So we had to reclassify it to an inland basin, which gives you 10 years to prospect and convert the license. And that took a lot of money and activity to do. Now, there's some details that I can't tell you now as to why we were able to even keep the concession in the first place. Because nice people, good people did me some favors then that I don't think I should get involved or spill out right now on this program. But anyway, after we finally reclassified it, and President Obasanjo was president, we also had another problem with the regime, in that President Obasanjo couldn't quite believe why we had 2 concessions. And we tried to show him that, look, we didn't operate the second concession because the license was suspended. And we actually paid for both concessions. Anyway, the long and short of it is that eventually canceled one and left off with 1. Oh, sorry. Yeah, eventually canceled one and left off with 1. And then we continued operating on the one that we had. But fortunately, when President Yar'Adua came to power, I approached him. Before then, when he canceled it, we as Summit Oil took DPR to court because we paid for the concession. We just didn't pay for the signature bonus. We also paid for all the data to MPD. They were the original owners of the concession. So we went to court. And then when President Yar'Adua came, I approached him. I explained my situation, which he knew anyway. It's always known. And he returned back that concession to us. So we went to court, had an out-of-court settlement, and that's how we got it back. And we've been trying ever since to make it work. So we've gone from the first to virtually the last now, because it's a long, tedious governmental process just to get it operational again. But I have a total commitment to Summit Oil because of one particular thing. When we signed the signature bonus back then, and we were going to pay for it, my father was approached by family members who didn't quite understand why he would leave so much and give so much in my hands to go and take the risk of drilling for oil. And I think I told you Dele back then, kind of offline then. And he said, well, he believes in Kola and he believes Kola can achieve this thing. And like as Kola has said it, we're going with this, if it works, we're going to go from being rich, quote unquote, to wealth. And he honestly believes I know what I'm talking about. That's number one. Number two, I told my dad that I believe that this is what is going to provide for, because he keeps telling you, Kola, all these kids and all these wives and everything, it's your headache. I said, yes. The only difference there is that I didn't think it'd be my headache sooner than it came. As soon as it came, a lot sooner than it came. So, and I always told him, like, look, sir, if we make this work, you will make my burden a lot easier. And, okay, fine. And we went into it. So when we struck oil, and I proved everybody right, there's a lot of excitement in him and myself that at least I've helped prove that this thing would work. Events that happened subsequently was totally out of my control. And because of that, till to date, I've been trying to make sure that thing works. And that's why I've stuck at it. I put in a lot of my own resource just to make it work, despite all the setbacks, but I'm still at it, and inshallah, I'm almost there.
Amen. Amen. Now, your dad was almost into everything.
Yeah.
Could you tell us the story of Concord Airlines?
Concord Airlines came by default, actually. We had two aircrafts there, Mike Kilo and Kilo Oscar, two HS-125s. And while it was for personal usage, we also ran it as a charter, private charter. And along the lines, the whole idea of, since we're running private charters also, why don't we just set up an airline? And that came, it wasn't my idea, it was sold to him, but once he said he was going to do it, so I followed in and make it happen. But I was going to do it differently. I wasn't going to use, like was done back then, close to time aircrafts that only had a few months to go, that was so expensive to manage. I decided to use turboprops instead because I thought they were efficient. And with that, I can make a lot more hubs and more connections. And that's the idea was to run a hub and spoke kind of operation. And we did that till it was also shut down by the military also. And that.
So, do you think it's something you would like to resurrect?
Good question. For me, it's like fine china. You drop it on the floor, it's so difficult to get the pieces together. There are some things I don't see happening again. There's some that have a possibility. There's some that are still running. But I'm not sure the airline thing is one of those things in my book.
Now, I started life in Lagos at the Concord newspapers.
Right.
So what happened to Concord newspapers? Because at the time you invited me, you also wanted to resurrect it. Then,
Yes.
So what happened?
Concord was proscribed by the military government then. And while they occupied the premises, they virtually stole all the parts. They stole out all the parts and rendered predominantly most of the plant and machinery useless. That's one. Two, I also felt that I could resuscitate it, and I still plan to resuscitate it, but using a totally different model. We're in a new age now. The days of having a huge printing press, 1,001 people all over the place is gone. And I discussed that possibility with you, and I gave you the blueprint, if you remember, on how I intended to do it. Now, while it came back for a bit, it still had the problem of feeding its own self. Why? Because the management then was still trying to maintain that old order. But I even recall, I think they went to the government, the state government of the day then for help, and their own idea of helping them was to buy their generators. I wonder how that would help. I don't have a press would run without generators, but that's another story entirely. So I think it's still. I don't think. I know it's still it's doable. I know it's going to come back. It's not going to come back in the form in which you know it, but it's going to be a hybrid of some sort. And I'm working on that fully. I think we're far gone on the plans, and by the time you have when I say hybrid, you have new media, you have hard copy papers, there's a mix of both in the offering to bring it back. Yeah.
One of the saddest things that happened was the story of Abiola farms.
Yeah.
At the time, you had Abiola farms, you had Bamusov fisheries,
Yes.
you had a rice mill in Dakar, in Taraba State, I believe. So what happened to all these companies, Lafiaji, everywhere?
The same thing. The farms collapsed because the military government believed I had a secret airstrip on the farms, the one in Lafiagi and in Taraba, and I was flying in arms and training commandos there. Well, we didn't have Boko Haram then, so let alone training commandos. So, and as a result, they shut it down. The same thing. They start providing equipment. It didn't help that family also decided to go there and start looting the place and selling stuff. But the farms was something very dear to me. If there's one thing I've done in a whole list of things that I've put my hands into, running the farm was one of the biggest satisfactions I ever had running a company. You truly reap what you sow. I got so involved in it that at the height of it, I was doing about 3,000 hectares of maize, another 1,000 hectares of sunflower seeds. I had my imported hybrids for sorghum, for soybean. I was really, truly passionate about it. I really, really enjoyed working. And of all the companies, that was number one for me. And the kind of value added, the kind of changes I made to the environment, to the community, to the people in these remote areas, it's something that in the government of the day then, thinking they're trying to hurt MKO or hurt me, they ended up hurting all these communities. In Taraba, for example, I have a local government, because of the contribution I made there, I have a local government named after me, Kola. So it's something that was so close to my heart, and I felt so bad. There's nothing I could do because there's a limit to how much you can take on a government. So I hear people say, you didn't do this, didn't do that, you could have done this, you could have done that. I pray to God that I never have to face government. They will always find a way to to chop off your kneecaps. And the system is, if the system wants to bring you down, for me to be standing and have survived it, I think alhamdulillah, I think I've done a great job so far.
Now, your dad was a global citizen.
Right.
And he touched lives everywhere, especially in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
I remember the case when the Sultan Abubakar of Sokoto passed on.
Yeah.
And he had to get involved in the Machido Dasuki fiasco.
That's good, yes.
Are you able to recollect what happened at that time?
Yes.
It is because today Nigeria is so divided that we hardly hear of something where a Yoruba man will go to Sokoto to settle, traditional problems.
Yeah. My father was very close to the late Sultan Abubakar. His son is the present Sultan of Sokoto to date. He was very, very close to him. So when the issue of the late, not late,
Sultan Abubakar, Dasuki and Machido,
came up, the minute it was announced and there were burning and killings in Sokoto, my father and I got in the aircraft and flew to Sokoto. We met with the Sultan. We went to see the Masjido also. And he was able to broker some peace. And, in Islam, you must have faith. You must have faith. God gives, God takes away. And we'll see what happens subsequently. But the truth of the matter is that at least there was peace. The truth of the matter is that the Sultan Dasuki would be in history as having been as Sultan of the Emirate at some point in time. So is his brother, I guess, in many ways, Masido, who eventually, unfortunately, died in the crash. So that's everything is prescribed and ascribed by God, and everything is always laid out. We probably don't know because we don't have the foresight he has, but if we can just give peace a chance, everybody would have his turn at things, provided if we can just be patient to have that script play out. And he's going there, I think, doused a lot of the storm. We met with quite a number of people in Sokoto that day. And by the time we left, I think there was a change in events there. And peace came about. But you see, that only goes to show why when I tell everybody that I don't say anything but in Nigeria, those are the examples I've lived to know that there is nothing but in Nigeria. And that's why I have my views about being Nigerian and what Nigerian should be. So I've seen the examples, I've seen them come to play. I have offices in every state. I'm at home in every state in this country because we reached out as Nigerians. I grew up in an environment that couldn't see anybody by race, by religion, but purely just being Nigeria was the ticket you needed. If I didn't care where you come from, or where my mom either, whether as long as you're Nigerian. We've been to remote places for employees on functions, remote, and I mean remote, just to support them, and they're still Nigerians. So that was just one in many things that he did back then. And when the late Gumi was given the prize from Saudi, he chartered the whole aircraft and flew everybody out there to support the late Gumi. This is what I understand. This is what I know. I just don't know why anybody will see differently today, except maybe leadership has failed or they've got it wrong or something. I don't know. But We did a big bank. Yeah, that's one of the things. We did a big bank with friends from North. So it's to me it's the norm. I don't know. I've never seen anything otherwise, but that it's the norm for me. So
Wow.
May Allah bless. He was a good man. He was a very good man. He was a very, very good man.
You served your national service in Zaria.
Zaria, that's right.
Today, a lot of people in your position will never do that. They will use long legs to come back to Lagos and things like that. What happened? How did you find yourself in Zaria? You had the power to go everywhere.
I came home on holiday. My mom wanted me to go back for a PhD, and I didn't. I just was ready to be home and start doing something. I'd worked at the oil chemical bank then, and I just wasn't being fulfilled, and I knew I could do a lot more when coming back to Nigeria. So I went ahead and filed for my NYC on my own. And my mom kept on asking, when are you going back? When are you going back? I said, well, I'll go back. And finally, I had to break it to her that I'm doing my NYC and I'm not going back for a while. So, but she had to make me promise her that I will do a PhD. And I will do it. I owe her that much. Maybe when my little girl goes back to school, maybe I'll go join her and do that. But I will definitely do it, inshallah. Anyway, so I got posted to Kaduna State. As God will have it, the camp is in Zaria. And Zaria is a second home for me. So coincidentally, he had a house there. The emir was more of his brother and a godfather to me, so I was at home. And not just that. I mean, I went to Taraba. I mean, Dhaka is so remote. I had no problems there. I had no problems. I was at home. I was so at home that, like I said, I have a local government in my name. I was so I had no problems. And the day my mom came to the farm in Dhaka to see what I was doing, and she was going, Kola, what are you doing here? Your mates are in Lagos, working in banks or working in oil companies. What are you doing here? And I said, look, that says I should do it, and I'm loving it. And she said, well, you can't, I'm going to tell him you can't continue here. I said, well, you are the one that says whatever dad says you do, right? So why would you want me to do otherwise? But besides, I'm creating things here. I'm making something out of nothing here, and that's why I thrive the most. I don't think I'm a good trader, but when it comes to creating something from zero, I think that's my strength. That's my strength. And she now went back to Lagos, got my dad on the plane to come to Dhaka, go and see what this boy is doing in that place. So, and the same thing Lafiagi. Lafiagi for me was, I was comfortable everywhere. And when I went to Edo State to start drilling oil, the environment then, I just compared to what I have done there over the years and what it is today, alhamdulillah. So I'm not afraid to move anywhere or invest anywhere as long as we all see ourselves as one. And that's what it's all about.
Your dad was involved in the fight for reparations.
Oh yeah.
Against the many years of decades of slavery.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have said the West was not comfortable with that aspect of his life. What informed the decision to go for reparations?
You see, my father always fights for the underdog. And if he felt he had the reach to make a difference, he would always put his best foot forward. Besides being a true Nigerian, he's very much a Pan-Africanist. And he felt that, look, if we don't, like he would say, we either unite together to survive or separate ourselves, separately to commit suicide. And that was his own way of letting Africa come together as an economic unit. Now, you can't become a strong economic unit if you don't have the infrastructure, the policies, things as such to make it convenient, and the ease of trade and ease of movement. And as a result, drop all the barriers to entry and exit in every country. You cannot create the economics if the entry cost is so high. When I have to fly to, like in our football days, I may have to fly to Italy to get to Gabon, or fly to France to get to Cameroon. I mean, when Cameroon is just next door. So he felt, okay, by doing this, let them pay for that infrastructure that they deprived of, because we went there to build the infrastructure for them. It's on our backs that that infrastructure was built. The cotton fields in America, the sugarcane fields in the Caribbean, and so on and so forth. So he felt, look, they owe it to us to at least provide some, if they can provide a Marshall Plan for the Germans and give the Israelis, I don't know, 10 billion every year, something like that. Why not at least do something that provides for us and creates and makes up for what we have lost over time and generations? And he was very, very passionate about that. And as to whether the West was comfortable with it or not, I don't know. I don't think he saw it as that. I don't think he was even aware of that at any given point in time. He just felt like, look, somebody has to start this. Let me be the one to start it. Over time, it'll crystallize, and it's beginning to. Like I said, the man had a lot of foresight. Everything he did was not by error. There was a lot of foresight in it, and we are slowly but surely getting towards to doing that.
At the end of January 1993, your dad suddenly went into politics. And I remember living in Luka Ogagbina's house that night when we picked up the information, and I came to your house in Anthony Village to ask you. I'm sure you remember that night.
I know very well.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So could you now tell me everything that transpired?
You see, a few months before that, we had a meeting at the hospital with my mom. At that meeting, the issue of him running for president and politics came up. And her take was that, look, I wholly support you to do this, but there was a big but. Allow President Babangida finish his program and do what he wants to do, and then you can step in and run. And she had reservations of the process. He was working his transition program, and as such felt she needed to bring it up to I think Deji Agbo, myself, himself. I think Balaji was also there. I think we were all there actually, as a matter of fact. And we kind of agreed that, you know what, let them finish this process. Once it's done, then we will now take on running for president. Let's see how far he's going to truly go with this process, because she had no faith in it. And we left about a week or two after she passed away. and we just were dealing with that. And then when he couldn't tell me he was going to do it because he knew we had some understanding. But I was reading it and hearing of it exactly the way you heard of it. But I knew all along what was going on, how we drove there, because everybody, I have one or two people in there who were calling me, Kola, where are you now? This man is doing this. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? I said, I don't know anything about it. So I played dumb. He couldn't call me. Normally, I used to go work out at Ivory Health Club, and on my way home, I will always stop by the house before I go to Anthony. I didn't go. I didn't know anything. He will start sending people over to me and say, Kola, I haven't seen you. Daddy said you haven't seen you. I said, but he knows how to call me, right? So but I played dumb. And then I think I have that letter. I wrote a letter and I resigned from the companies, actually. So I resigned and said, well, it's time for me to equally move on. Then one late night. So, okay, yeah. So all along, the process was going on. You had all those people going to Concord with all manners of programs and election formats and strategies and so on and so forth. But all along, he kept on telling somebody very close to him that, look, this is not right. There's something wrong. Where's Kola? If he gets here, we will get the answers to all the questions I'm having. So he was coming out. I can't remember where he was coming from. Very late night, like 2:30 a.m. He comes by my house. He does that from time to time, but he hadn't done that in a while before that. And then got in and said, Kola, K, he calls me KK. How are you? I said, I just stopped. I'm coming back I'm on my way home. I said, I should come and see my grandkids. I said, okay, your grandkids are upstairs. So I take him upstairs. He sees them. And I didn't say anything. We came back downstairs. He got into his car and stopped at the gate, came out and came to hug me. I said, Kola, are you just going to leave this to me to do and you not participate in it? Now, before that, I think why he also did that was, I think a week before in Abuja, I'd met with Olu Akirele. And we were talking about the election because he had sent Olu to me to get your friend to get involved in this thing. So I said, Olu, I'm not interested, but I will give you what I think the blueprint is and what is needed to be done. You can take it to him and discuss it. So I sat, this was at the Nikon, at the lobby downstairs. So I sat down and gave him a step-by-step process and what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. And I actually also predicted who was going to be VP in that write-up. I still have, I think Olusi has a copy of that thing. I wrote it line by line. And I think Olu must have gone to him and said, you need to call Kolasa. This is what he's saying. This is what he has laid out. And he goes, hey, Modiso, I told you. Something, this now it's making sense. We have to go see him. Go and call him. He said, Kola, who calls her? You have to go and find a way to reach. He's left my company. He's written a letter. He said he's resigning and blah, blah, blah. So he now used that decoy to come to see his grandkids, to stop by and say, Kola, show Mama, you can't leave this. You can't leave me to this. You have to. And I smiled. I said, well, now that you're telling me now that this is what you're doing, then I guess I can look at it. And that's how I got involved.
Well, is it true that your mom ever told Daddy not to go into politics?
No, she said you can go into it, but let the IBB program come to a conclusion first. And then...
So, but the program was elongated.
Yeah, that's why she That's why you
your
shouldn't
dad
want to
got.
involved in it.
So, do you think your dad got impatient with the transition program? And is it true that he sent people to President Babangida to find out if he was ready to go finally?
Yeah, but either way, it's neither here or there. Look, the difference the difference in not just MKO but us. And when I say us, the five of us, was there was no symbiote, and that told on us, and it's still telling on us till to date. I really don't know how best to explain that because you see, there's a limit. I was very very close to Dad, but there's a limit with the kind of training she had given us. There's a limit as to how I can look up to him and say my mind. He can tell that, look, I'm not in agreement with things, but there's a limit as to how I can confront him and say, look, you know what? It's not going to happen. Now, in the past, I could speak to him. He could tell where I'm coming from. If I have a sense that he's not fully on board, I can go to mom and tell her, look, I don't think this man is listening to me. She'll just tell me, go home, leave it to me. And she knows what to say to him or how to get him to come around. But I seem to be the only one in the room that seems to say things differently. And everybody around him, um, everybody around him are saying, they're not saying it from Kola's perspective. They're not saying it for the love I have for the man, for the concerns I have, for what I can see. Because I think deep about things, and very rarely do I hit on things and they don't come that way. It's just a gift. I don't know what it is, but because I just don't open up and say things. And that's probably why I don't give too many interviews either. Because my views can be very extreme. Now, and when I was a lot younger, I don't think there's an Abiola kid that is afraid to say their mind. That's not a problem. I've learned over time to manage my tongue and be restrained over time. I've learned over time, but still, there's a limit as to how confrontational or how up in your face you can be with your dad. I mean, come on, that would be a bit too much. So I think that bit of it created a circumstance where I was alone in that room, so to speak, and there was a limit as to what I could have achieved. But I should leave out on it despite that, though. So
Yes, I am very interested in the SDP primaries in Jos.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
There was a lot of work to be done, a lot of horse trading, sleepless nights. I'm sure Daddy didn't sleep for weeks. Could you recapture the essence of that marathon campaign to get the SDP ticket?
Well, number one, what we did was not conventional. Okay? And what we did, and what I've learned over time was we really planned a coup against the establishment. We were never meant to get that far. But because we did things in a very unconventional manner, they could really not tell where we're coming from at any given time. So that gave us heads up. Now, I got very involved in the Yaradua group. So I was what, 28, 29, something like that then. And I had to learn very, very fast. And I'm thankful to that whole process till tomorrow. Lajebas Buhari is one. The late General Yaradua, another. Kai, It was the late President Yaradua himself also. Um, I really had a lot to learn at a very short time. Now, we came in late into the game. So I need to figure out where the power play is and how do we use that power unit to achieve the objective. And at every given point, we were betrayed. You were betrayed. But because of my innocence, I think there was an advantage in that then. I see it, I brush it off, and I move to the next thing. So it was relentless. I kept on going, I kept on going. I would go and meet this person, and because they're looking at this small boy, what does he want? They're forced to actually listen and at least take steps to help me achieve. And I think because of that, it gave Dad an advantage that a lot of what they won't say to him, a lot of what he won't find out, I could find out, I could absorb. And he trusted me enough, even at that age, that whatever decision I took at that point, he was so sure. That it's in the best interest of the objective. I wanted nothing but to deliver the ticket, and I moved because even Jos was a joke. We paid for every hotel in Jos. Every hotel in Jos, every guest house in Jos, to find out that the Bakingide camp, he had the governors on his side. Top Gun was on his side, threatened all the hoteliers that if any single one allowed me to put any delegate in their hotels, they're going to cancel their licenses. But thank God, we had camped everybody in Kaduna first and moved them on the day of the election straight to the stadium for the election. So whatever we paid then was gone. I couldn't to even find a place to sleep myself in Jos there was a problem. And we still had to make sure things work. So it's an exercise that I would have to I have to write about it because the kind of games, the kind of even our people ourselves. I mean, despite like someone that comes to mind right now is Babade, for example. I have the highest. Don't matter what anybody says about Babade, I have the highest respect for the man. In my little age, he will sit me down and say, "Kola, what exactly do you want?" I will lay it out, and he will make sure to the T. And he will tell me, "This is what this person has done. This is what I has done. They brought this to me, but don't worry, go to sleep." And not at any given point has he done otherwise. Never. And even when the delegates were playing me, he said, "Don't worry. I will go report to him." I said, "I think these guys are playing games with me." He said, "Don't worry. We will get what you want. It may not come out exactly, but you will get what you want." And I got what I wanted back then. And because even our voting pattern was meant to be different at the stadium. Some half of it, like for example in Ondo State, for example, even Oshu State, then the games played, because people have been promised VP and no VP by back then. Because we wanted from the Southwest to just have one candidate from the Southwest. That it didn't quite work out. Even in my state, Ogun State, the last day of the state primaries was when the competition stepped up. Should that really happen in Ogun State? But
now,
a lot of things very fast. Yeah.
So you got the ticket, your dad got the ticket,
yes,
and moved on to the general elections.
Right.
I was not in Nigeria on the day of the election because your dad had sent me to Vienna to represent him. Chief Ganifani was getting the Bruno Kreisky Award. But by Monday, June 14, 1993, I called Unduka Bagbena in Nigeria, and he told me he's been trying to reach me, that if I could reach Chief Abiola, I should tell him to reach out to President Babangida urgently. And I said, why? He said, because he's going to win, his player is going to win, but they're not going to give it to him. And I said, how can someone win election and they won't give it to him? Do you think, in retrospect, that it was an error that Daddy did not reach out to President Babangida early enough?
Well, he did. He did. I did the reaching out on behalf of him. I had a couple meetings with the general, was President Babangida then, and I took the messages back and forth. Even Deji at some point also, with the late Emir of Zaria, they met at the airport in some cases. So yeah, we did. We did. Definitely we did. It's just that they allowed, both sides allowed too many people get in the middle of friendship. I've always felt the two of them can sort things out themselves. But you know, it's destiny, I guess. And there was a particular case where even after the annulment and everything, I actually approached General Babangida in his office. And I said, sir, are you going to leave? And I looked at him in the face. I said, Kola, yes, I'm going to go. And that was the day I believed he was definitely going to go. And I went back and I told he's going to go. We should start planning for that. But everybody around him didn't believe he was going to go. Around my dad, didn't believe he was going to go. It was more of what the scholar know. But I spoke to the man myself at my even young age. If he said otherwise, I can tell. And he's somebody that also allowed me to be very direct with him. So it's but they didn't believe he was going to go, so they made no plans for him to go. Unlike the Yaradua group that he said, you know what, if this man is not going to go, in the event that he goes, what's our plan B? They had no plan B. They're just working on the premise that he was not going to go, and that was it. I tried to make them see otherwise, but you know.
And now, talking about President Babangida, do you believe that some people worked on him not to hand over to your dad? Because I would later learn around 1998-99 from Dr. Rilwan Lukman. You know, I visited him when Chief Alaye was running against Chief Obasanjo. And he told me that the owners of Nigeria, that was my first time of hearing about the owners of Nigeria, that they were already settled for Baba Obasanjo and not for Falaye. So do you think the owners of Nigeria intervened at that point?
You know what? Leadership is a very tough thing. I'm not sure whether, honestly, I'm not sure whether President Babangida was held hostage by anybody. I think he was held hostage by a process he created himself. That process had dragged for too long that he had no choice. He was stuck. We started this process, if you remember, multi-parties. We started registering parties. You came back out, canceled the parties. After canceling the parties, you formed two parties. You built party offices for everybody nationwide. There was no way he could walk back from it. There's no way. They've meddled with that process for way too long. It's been in the toilet for too long that too many flies are already there, as I say. So he was already hostage to a system or process that was so dragged out that was about to consume him himself. So as to whether people, because that's what leadership is all about, you must take the decision, even at your own, you have to be objective enough to make decisions, even at your own expense. So for a person that has dragged that for so long, I want to believe that it was not, yeah, there might be people, there's always going to be a set of people who don't want to go for their own personal, selfish reasons. But for the leader himself, he has to make that call, irrespective. And I think he was held more hostage by the process he had created that was endless, as opposed to individuals. That's just my own summary right there. And,
okay. Sorry. President Babangida stepped aside and Chief Ernest Shoneko from the same Egbas yourselves stepped in. Right. Why do you think they invited him, and why did you think he accepted?
Well, I really don't know. I don't look, you see, the governance will never be in a vacuum. There will never be a vacuum in governance. Never. Now, you had, like I said earlier on, I had a meeting with him, with the president then, Babangida. He said to me direct and looked at me in the eye and said, Kola, I am going to go. I go back and convey this to my side. And they didn't believe me. And they made no plans whatsoever for plan B. You had another group, the Yar'Adua group, who are saying, well, he's not going to go. Okay, fine. But in the event that he goes, let's have this in place. Because like General Yar'Adua will say, same thing he says, there will never be a vacuum. Somebody has to step in at some point. So let us make sure, the objective is for him to leave, right? Let's make sure he leaves first. And then we'll take the next step. But our side of the fence didn't believe he would leave. They made no plan Bs for him to leave. And that's what happens. Now, as to where the pick, Chief Shoneko, well, he was kind of in there already anyway as interim president, I think he was. That dual thing that General Abiy had.
The interim government.
No. Not interim. Interim was after the annulment, right? He was already there. When he had this dual thing, when they had civilian head of government or something. I can't remember what they called it. If you recall, when Abiy was still president, Chief Shoneko was what?
I think it was chairman of something. I can't remember now.
Yeah, he was there already, so I guess it was easier to move from there. I don't know, but it's not like as if he was never in government at all, and they just had to go and call him and tell him to come. It was in the corridor there already anyway, so maybe it was just convenient. I don't know, but you like I said, we had no plan Bs. And
but it has been alleged that Chief Abiola was one of those who said Chief Shoneko should be sacked, and then Abacha took over because he promised to return power.
That was a mistake. That was a mistake, and I said that back then. No military man would say that it's treason. Whether it's a civilian man there or a military man there, it's treason. So you don't go ahead and remove somebody to now say you want to bring somebody back. If he fails, then he's dead. Nobody puts. No military man will do that. Maybe he will stay there for a bit and then with elections later and maybe rectify things, but he won't plan a coup to just hand over. I didn't see that coming, and I thought that was a big mistake. Yes, and I said it back then. And I believe
Wow.
it was a big mistake to call him to take over government to do the right thing. Who does that? I mean, the man's a military man. If he fails his choosing, he's going to be shot dead. So if he takes that risk, he takes it for himself, for sure.
2 days after the Abacha coup, we were with your dad in his study, and I remember Professor Agbala Jobi, Alaji Tede Lukoya, Alaji Shukwadetono, and a few others were in the room with them. And he actually wanted to issue a very strong statement against Abacha. And they advised him against it, and I actually advised him to reach out to General Sonny Abacha. Then the following morning, so that night, your dad asked me to get some documents, and the following morning he told me that his vice, Babaganaki Gibe, and others decided to join the Abacha government.
I told him
that. You know, there was a meeting in the house that night.
Yeah, I actually told him that myself. You see, before then, I knew from my own means that, look, they were going with the government anyway. So, but to window dress things and make it as if it was sanctioned, they had that meeting to discuss what needed to be done or what steps should they make. Should they reach out to the government and so on and so forth? So before then, I told my dad that this guy is already in the government. And when I told him, I really felt for him. I really felt he was in his room, he was on his bed, and he really, I can see that day right now. It was a very, it was a very difficult thing for him to swallow. More because, like you said, Kola, if we don't do this thing right, we're going to end up being the biggest losers if we don't handle this right. He said that day. And I really felt so bad that but I had to tell him. So when the meeting was called, he just flowed with it and didn't really say anything. Maybe in a way he joked around afterwards. He saves him having to carry anybody's wallet again. So So
do you think that was the night everything ended?
For him?
Yes, the June 12th campaign.
I don't think it ever ended for him. It never ended for him, no. It never really did. Because it's sort of like when they had that national conference, or where the Abacha government had, and they were going to have an election or something to send people to that. Is it national conference or not? I forget what it's called now. Constitutional conference or something like that.
Constitutional conference or whatever.
Yeah. And we were having a debate. And I was like, sir, we had a meeting in Kaduna with the group, the Yaradua group there. And they said, well, if one of the reasons why the Yaradua government group did not join the government at all was when General met with General Abacha, he had asked him when he was leaving, and he said he didn't know. And he said if he had no idea when he was leaving, then he definitely wouldn't be a part of it. So when the General Abacha announced that the conference will set the exit date, they took it on themselves, sent their best people to the conference to go and give him that exit date. Okay? On our own side of the fence, we were talking about boycotting the conference. I don't know if you remember all this, Dele. We were
Yes.
talking about, yeah, we were talking about boycotting the thing. And I'm like, sir, this is a major government. Whether you boycott, whether you don't, they're going to do it. And my thing then was to even have my dad even go to the conference. And it equally got General into trouble. That whole giving the date thing got him into trouble. And the rest is history now, I guess.
Now your dad, okay, first he left Nigeria and went abroad. He said
that was during the IBB.
That was during the IDB. No. After the declaration, he, what do I mean by that? No, after Abacha, he went to a better do for the declaration.
Right.
Were you ever in support of taking that decision?
I was, but with a proviso. Because my own thing was that we're now under a military regime, okay? Anybody who says we should do this must be willing to stand by us, Abi. I think he had a press conference.
Yes.
He was going to appoint his own cabinet and blah, blah, blah. So my own take was I appoint that cabinet and let that whole cabinet go with you to the Equatorial place. So it's not just you. Let all of us go there. Well, let us all cut our skin in the game, so to speak, and let them all come with you there as a cabinet and go and declare your government. That was my own thing. As to when he left, I only found out afterwards. And that's because many people felt if I know, then he would listen and my views probably would supersede theirs. But so that was my condition. I didn't say don't do it, but if you're going to do it, let everybody go along with you and go and do it. And
he disappeared for about 13 days.
Mm-hmm.
He went into hiding.
Right.
And I remember he came out from Surulere to go home before he was finally arrested that night. Are you able to capture those moments?
I wasn't there, unfortunately. By the time I got there, he had been taken. I knew he was going to leave. He was coming home that day. I was meant to be at the house before then, but I had some family personal things that I had to take care of real quick before heading there. But by the time I got there, the whole place was sealed up, and I couldn't get to him.
So throughout the 13 days, you were not in touch with him?
I was. But by the time he was taken away, during that period, I even went to see General Abacha in Abuja. I got there to see him. He was waiting to see me. The late Alhaji Issa Futra was with him then, if I remember. And once they announced that I was there, he told them to call me. He said that they should have me wait. But Alhaji Issa said I should. He took excuse that I should please the general should see me immediately, that he will excuse himself because he knows what I've come for must be very important. So we had a discussion, I sat with him, I pleaded with him, and I said, look, you guys are all, I know you all to be friends. So we shouldn't allow this event to be so corrosive to the point that we forget passion for each other. And we had a long talk that day, long talk, and he said a lot of complaints and blah, 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 blah. And he wanted me to do one or two things which I felt I couldn't do. And when I left. And that was the last time I saw him on that issue. So it's the power play. What do you call the power play? Doesn't understand friendship. It doesn't.
Power play doesn't understand friendship.
Yeah, once you sit in that seat, even if you don't see things differently, the guys around you begin to make you tell you, no, it's not what it used to be. And I saw a lot of that back then. I'm even surprised they gave me the access I had back then. And I said, like I keep saying, maybe my innocence then maybe was an advantage. I had nothing to hide. I was honest with everybody. They've always known me to be honest. I've always interacted with them. Even at my young age, I've always interacted with them at that level. All the emirs, all the others at that level. That's the kind of exposure he gave me as my dad. And they knew my word was his word. And even when I get there and the message is different, I say otherwise and say what I think is appropriate. And I come back and say, look, sir, I didn't do it this way. This is how I did it. And he said, yeah. That's that. I mean,
And so your dad was arrested.
Yeah.
Could you tell us what you were doing for those 4 years? I took off at the stage. I had to run to England because Abacha.
I was meant to think of myself during the.
Yeah. You were stranded at home. You didn't go anywhere. You were there.
No,
so that's why I'm asking you, what were you doing for those 4 years?
I was going to take up myself during the coup, the fake coup or whatever coup, the General Masojo Yaradua coup, supposed coup. I was meant to have taken up because I was meant to have been arrested also, but I opted not to go because if my father was incarcerated, if I leave, then who else is going to be left behind? So I tried to stay and wait for them to arrest me in my house, which for some reason didn't happen eventually. And but yes, it was a very difficult 4 years. For me, it was a learning process 4 years. It was a learning process because I got to know his friends for what they truly are. I got to know family for what they truly are. I needed to sift fast a lot of things. I got to know a lot of the kids that I didn't know. And what I thought would be a temporary thing became permanent when he passed away. So it was a lot to absorb. I remember going to Abuja, sitting for 2-3 weeks to try to see him. And what's his name? Mustafa tossing us back and forth. But as God will have it, he ended up doing more jail time than anybody at the end of the day. So that's what I can tell you about faith and life. And as long as you do things with a clear mind and you stand on the truth, things will sort itself out, for sure. I mean, I would go there back and forth. I would keeping things together, the clamp down on everything we do. The only thing we had running there was the bank, and that's because we had Pakistani government involvement. Not like they didn't try to take it over. It was a tough 4 years. Thank God for some investments that we made back then in Dubai. But it was tough. It was really tough. I had a small tutelage with my mom passing away like a year and a half before his incarceration. And that was just a small bit of it, but at least I kind of had some little idea of what it entails. So, but my dad's situation was a full-blown case study. That's right.
Wow. You yourself you were arrested at some point, I think after the death of your stepmom, Alaja Kudira Abiola, God bless her soul. Yeah, what do you think happened? Why were you arrested?
What happened back then was that the last I saw Dad, he said we should change council. Now, it's very funny that came up because from day one, I opposed Chief J.O.K. Ajaya's council from day one because I knew of a bit of an antecedent between the two of them. The man never liked my dad. And I didn't think he would be there to truly do his fiduciary responsibilities in that case. And I think I was right. I know I'm right. So I really never went to court for as long as that guy was involved. So we saw the last time, and he said, "Look, Kola, you were right, and change this council." So I went and I started the process. And along the lines, Aja Kudirat she's friends with Akabasharu's, I think, wife.
Yes.
And Akabasharu came in J.O.K. Ajayi. And he found it difficult to withdraw the services. And I was bent on doing my instructions anyway. So we had an agreement with the late Adetoma, Dr. Falamo was there, that okay, she finally agreed that okay, she will withdraw the services, but she needed to see J.O.K. Ajayi first at the Yoruba Chinese Club. My good friend Sholaye, who you know also went on my behalf. Yes. Before they left for that meeting, I told them that I don't see what we should be doing is have her write that letter first, and then you can go with her to plead for J.O.K.'s understanding. For as long as she goes there first and thinks she will come back and write that letter, it will never happen. They said, why? I said, yeah, I'm very sure. Because I think it's a conspiracy. And they went, they came back, and she didn't write that letter afterwards. So I said, you should have, like I told you, you should have made her write that letter before. And they came back and said, look, I was right. And we just moved on and started the process. So we had a scenario where Chief Ajayi, continued with his services. And first it was the lawyer in Ibadan. Very nice. Chief, the lawyer in Ibadan with a school in Adekiti.
Oh, Afe Babalala, Chief.
Babalala, thank you very much.
Babalala, yeah.
Then came in Chief Williams, and we started this thing. Now, the irony of it is that this man made it impossible because we had to Chief Ajayi actually locked in the case in every court possible. So we had to start by unwinding and undoing everything before we now go to the Supreme Court, which he now came also to the Supreme Court. And does that, but anyway, in short, so when she was shot, then unfortunately, I'd gone to Dele to make that statement. I was invited, so I went. And I got locked up, claiming that I was part of the conspiracy that killed her then, which is really unfortunate. But time has shown that I had nothing to do with it. Unfortunately, even her kids accused me of being a party to killing their mom. I don't think they remember that I was even locked up for that case. But that's another story entirely. I don't know. It was one of the difficult times I had to go through back then because it's what I was trying to do, or what I ought to have been doing, is to hold the family together, and then the system decides to want to split the family by accusing me of being part of a conspiracy that kills my own father's wife. Isn't that kind of sinister? But also, I learned one thing also, in that same thing, the same group that were in support of Chief Ajayi then, all were also incarcerated. All of them. Chief Adesoya, I think, all of them were equally incarcerated. And if I recall, I think the late Attorney General was their lawyer. Chief Bolaige was their lawyer. They went to court. I refused to go to court because I didn't do anything. I just figured I'll be playing to the hands of the military. So I got released before they did. But I think I did about 5.5, 6 months. I think they did about a year, if not more, playing the system. But the bigger the head, the bigger the headache, as my dad would say. So.
Yes. And then 2 days to July 7, 1998. Again, I was in London, and myself and Tokunbo Afikuyomi, we left Nduka Begbena's house. He had fled into exile by then. And so we left very early in the morning, walked from Park Lane to Mabulad, and then we bought the Sunday Times of London, and then we saw a story on Chief Abiola that the Sunday Times reporter came to Nigeria with the then UN Secretary General, Dr. Kofi Annan, and they said the condition under which they met your dad in prison was very, very bad. Then 2 days later, after we read that story, your dad passed on. Could you recollect what happened the last 24 hours before you got the news of his death?
It was like any other day for me. I had gone my usual workout, came back. I got a call from a friend of mine that says, Kola, I hope you heard what's going on. This was before it became public. She was crying on the phone and so on, and broke the news to me. Now, at that point, I didn't even know that the government of the day then, Abdul Salam's government, had invited us to come and see. I think the day before, 2 days before. So conveniently, I was left out of that trip. I didn't even realize that till I got to Abuja to come and mop up events. And I got there, I got the news, and I spoke to Dr. Falamo. He lived across from me then. And then I got a call from Abuja that I needed to come. And then it was all over the news at that point. And I just sat back. I was you know, I've always felt it was just a temporary thing, that it'll all snap out and things will move on. I put a lot of things on hold then because I had felt, even when it came out, I'd have to have a discussion with him on our setup, business-wise and otherwise. And if you recall, Dele, I've always told you I wouldn't get involved in anything the family is involved in, business-wise. But I was mapping out plans to do some things, but I felt it only right for me to sit down and discuss with him first and get clearance before moving on. My situation with the family, I thought was temporary, became real. I thank God that I had the space of time to begin to engineer and understand things a little better. And the difference didn't hit me a little less because of that, but still hit me real hard. And before then, because of all this dispute about changing council or not changing council, for the last 1 year before that, they didn't give me any access to him because I needed to sign some papers. So they refused to give me access to it. And I felt so empty because Dad was really my friend. You know, it was my dad, but it was my friend. It was I really looked up to him. Yeah, we all have our own flaws, but he was a genuinely good man. He was, he had no hate in him at all. Not at all. He just couldn't hate. Some will call it naive, but if you have a heart like his, it's not naive. It's giving everybody a chance to prove themselves. And on getting to Abuja, I started telling myself, you know, this thing is really real. Met with Abdulsalam, went to what they call the State House Clinic. That place, and I saw the condition in which they put him. This country, two things Nigeria does very well is to rubbish your leadership. If a man wins an election, and because of the election, take him in a black Maria to court, what sort of a crime has he committed? Winning an election? And then the one thing we also do very well is that we become a country that don't care about our youth. And that can be good.
Mm.
I've seen it all. So it can be good because, you see, once you rubbish short people, so what are the youth themselves supposed to look up to? There's no, you have principles, they rubbish you, and then you expect the younger ones to have, besides the fact that you failed them and not, they haven't felt anything about Nigeria in their lives, and then they see the leaders that they can look up to and see that they're being rubbished the way they are. It's, a man wins an election across the board, nationwide, and then you take him in a black Maria to court. What are you trying to tell me? That you think that's a way to break a man, but as opposed to making him stronger against you? So And then I go to the state house and I see where they keep his corpse, and some have dead refrigeration. The place is nasty. This is attached to the state house, for God's sake. You know, it reminds me of my days in detention when I would sit out in the evenings and look at the police barracks and see the kind of nastiness that goes on in that place. And then I tell myself, and I expect these guys to have any empathy to victims when I treat them this way, and I see the environments. I've seen scenarios where if you're cooking in the kitchen and you forgot your salt, you go to your room to get salt. Before you come back, and the stove and the half-cooked soup is disappearing. In the police barracks, a guy dies on duty before his wife even knows or is told. Somebody's already in there packing her out. I saw these things live there. So, you know, and then I see that state, even in death, the way they treated him and where they put him is like disgusting. Why? Because the man won an election. You know, it doesn't make any sense. But anyway.
On the morning your dad passed on,
yeah,
a certain man, Mr. Nyika Ibiduni woke me up from bed in London just after 7 a.m. He had been calling and calling, and then when I eventually picked, he said, "They want to kill your father and you are sleeping." And I said, "My father died in 1973. Which father again do they want to kill?" He said, "Your father, Abiola." I said, "Who wants to kill him?" He said, "Well, by his own reading, he just listened to BBC World Service, and there was an interview with Thomas Pickering and Susan Rice, both of whom came from America to see Chief Abiola, and they asked them, 'Why do you want to see Abiola?' Dr. Kofi Annan came. Abiola said he was not going to bargain his mandate. Chief Emeka came from the Commonwealth. He was Secretary General. Chief Abiola said, 'No deal.' So what do you hope to get from Chief Abiola?" And they said, "Oh, we're going to persuade him to forget about his mandate." To which they asked, "So if he tells you no, what will happen?" And that they responded, "He would have become a danger to Nigeria." And lo and behold, that evening, I was on to your sister, Ura Abiola, and we're going to issue a press release that all the human rights people who were saying Abiola should not leave prison unless they gave his mandate to him, that we should beg them to let Abiola come home. At about 4:03, it was a fax message I got from Ura. And then we were going to issue the release, and a few minutes after, she called and said, "They have killed Daddy, they have killed." I said, what is she saying? And then it turned out to be true. I know there has been a documentary that you've been involved in with Ose, Ramadan, and others. Do you truly believe that your dad could have been killed?
Dele, you know MKO very well. If it drives down a street and sees a hospital or a clinic, he will stop by there and tell them to check his blood pressure. My dad does not mess with his health. Any small out of place inconvenience health-wise, he's on the next plane out. He don't say, "Kola, I'm on the BA flight tonight. I'm not feeling too well. I feel something is wrong." He's gone. Now, when you incarcerate such a man for 4 years, it's not medical. You don't get a regular visitation from his doctor. Even at the point where we pleaded for him to go out for treatment in one of the cases. And then Chijioke Ajayi came out and challenged the judge for being a PDP or the NRC carry member and aborted that whole drive. It was just a matter of time. You didn't need to put a gun to his head. You didn't need to indirectly poison him. The man was... We all know he had a blood pressure problem for sure. No checkup in 4 years. This is the man that gets a checkup every day. Like I said, if he drives past a clinic, he will tell the driver to stop. I want to check my blood pressure. Any clinic, anywhere. And once it's higher than normal, he's on the next side out. So definitely he was killed. I mean, you don't have to put a knife to a gun to his head or spike his drink or whatever it is that takes. If you have malaria for 2 weeks and you don't get treatment, what's going to happen? Don't talk about a guy that, right? The number of tabs and vitamins that pops every morning. Maybe that's why I'm even not a believer in vitamins today. I don't know. Because he popped so many vitamin tablets. He had a tablet for everything in his bag. And you lock such a guy up for 4 years and you're telling me he was not going to die? But of course he's going to die. So he was killed, period. I don't care what circumstance or how you want to peddle it, how you want to... But of course.
After his death, you've had a lot of family issues.
Yeah.
How are you resolving the family issues? I'm aware there have been litigations. What happened to his will, for example? There was a time you were accused of forging the will, rewriting the will to favor you and your siblings. So what's been happening?
Number one, I must say one thing. Daddy not coming home, MKO not coming home, was a blessing in disguise for a lot of family members. Because the man I saw last, and the man that had gone through what he's gone through, if he had come home, a lot of things would have changed. A lot of things. 1. 2. Would I change a will that doesn't even benefit me? That will was dated quite all right. It wasn't up to date. But that was the last will signed. There was a will he wrote that gave me the right to everything to do and undo, which was not signed. Thank God. Because if it was signed, I don't think I'll be speaking to you here today. But thank God it wasn't signed. The copy is there. It's in the file. So why wouldn't I forge that signature on that one and leave this one behind? I don't get it. Number 3, I don't get anything from that will, from the will, the way it is now, because everything that I could possibly get that was willed to my mom is not transferable to me because my mom passed away before him. So whatever it is I'm doing now is pure out of respect to my dad and fisabilillah. Finish. Now, the so-called DNA issue. These kids were doing a blood test in the man's lifetime. In his lifetime, not after death. There's a set of kids that have done it, and they know themselves. They have done it in his lifetime. Their mothers know he did DNA tests on their kids in his lifetime. So why would I want to forge that? To the point that he even wrote in his will, specifically, there's a lady. He wrote there specifically that She has 2 kids for him, only one, because the lady had taken him to court in England. How would I have known that? And I can go on and on and on and on and on and on. But you see, like I said, leadership requires objectivity, even at your own expense. Now, if I wanted to, they were all very young while I was already working in these companies. Now, they were all very young. If I wanted to dispose of everything for my own use, there wouldn't be anything to be even to be fussing over today. But because of my responsibility to him and his ideals and what he would like to see, that's why there's something for them to keep looting all over the place. Everything I have and I've inherited has come from my mother. 100% from my mother. And I'm still getting it from it till tomorrow. Because my mom was always the entrepreneur in the house. And even I dare say all the funding of NPN in those days was simply at Abiola. A lot of the assets that is being utilized today was acquired by her. But you know, in the typical way of doing things, you put your husband as chairman, you put it in your husband's name. Even despite the fact that man was polygamous, everything was still MKO anyway. She didn't because I change anything. You know, and she didn't even leave a will. So automatically everything goes back to him. She didn't leave a will. So you see, I hear a lot of things, but you see, I can go to sleep at night. I do not carry mopo. I jog the streets if I want to. I drive myself if I want to because I know I am doing things right. I'm nothing to fear. Nothing to fear. I'm doing things right, and I'm doing it the only way I know how to. I'm not saying I'm right across the board, but I can, where I'm wrong, I can look at you in the face and say, I'm sorry, because I did it based on what I understood was right at a given point in time. So really, 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 this issue of the will, I am going to address because I have kids now. They're grown up. They're going to have kids. I don't want any child or any cousin or half brother, half sister accuse my kids of living off their grandfather or because of what their father stole from their father. Nah. I've been working all my life. I worked with him all my life. Even in secondary school, I was working with that. So I know a lot more detail than a lot of people know. And not just that, even my grandfather. In my young secondary school days, primary school days, he would call me into, my grandfather was the Balogun of Ojo. He would call me into elderly meetings and they would be grumbling. He said, Kola, he used to call me Lati, sit down, listen. He'd be asking me, Lati, what do you think? They can't say no because my grandfather was a tough man. They can't say no, and they know that they won't be able to eat lunch forever that day and collect their stipends anyway if he tells Kola to leave. So I know a lot more history than a lot of people think. So it's something I definitely would address, and I'm going to come address it with facts, with papers, with receipts, with everything. To this date, the estate is owing me a lot of money. To this date. And besides that, I even went out of the will to do some things for a lot of them that they know, but you know, but you see, unfortunately, it's having a sense of entitlement, which is nothing wrong with that. But if I had that same sense of entitlement, then they won't get nothing because of it's an English will. But in trying to be fair and trying to be transparent, I think I got myself into a cul-de-sac. And that's why people can now make claims and all that kind of stuff. If I just gone strictly by the rules and not be inclusive, there's nothing they can do. It's an English bill. My mother was married in Glasgow in an English court. But me trying to be fair and inclusive and transparent, I took on what I shouldn't have done. One. Two, I went out of the will to do some things because I thought it was also the right thing to do. And that's where you get into this kind of troubles. But I had the fear of God in me, so I had no problem doing what I did.
Lati, let me call you like your grandfather would have called you.
Yes.
Yeah. Many of your younger ones have accused you of not looking after them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The best thing I can do is pay this. I give us an education. And I think I've done that very well. As to what happens and what you do with that, it's the only foundation. I have a day, you speak to me because I took my education seriously. I have the degrees and I took them. Many of us went abroad and didn't come back with nothing, including friends, including siblings. Went and played the rich man's kid and having a good life and all that and all that. And I came back with nothing. Thank God we didn't make that mistake. We couldn't have anyway. Because in our own case, MK didn't pay our own school fees. It was Symbiat. And if you pay your school fees, you better make sure you come back with good grades. It's like my old friend from primary school, who keeps talking about me having repeated my class and all that from primary school, forgetting that look, at least I came fifth in school, and my mom made me repeat the class because I came fifth. If you can believe that. So it's we have to. So I made sure at least majority of us had education, especially the ones that went to school in Nigeria. I even got to a point that I didn't pay their school fees. I didn't pay my own kids' school fees till I paid everybody's collectively together. That cannot be wrong. Huh? I even went to a school, Corona school, to fight them for kicking MKO's kids out of school. Why? Because I'm so sure that he had done something with that school at one of the branches of the school at some point in time. And they apologized and took them back in. They're my brothers. They're my responsibility, irrespective. I did that. Even the ones that didn't even pass the DNA test, I still pay for their school fees. Why? Because I don't want them to be burdens for the ones that are our own. So he had a wife with 4 kids. 2 are not ours, 2 are his. I still paid for all 4 because I don't want that to be a burden for the 2 that are mine. Not just that, MKO in his lifetime didn't know who you were. You walked up to him, you wanted to go. He paid anyway. So why should I now say because they're biologically not his own, I won't pay? I paid, irrespective. So it's the biggest asset I was given, and I made sure I've done a lot of that myself. They complain I don't go to their weddings and all that, but when you have a mixed bag of past kids or not, kids that pass DNA and kids that do not pass DNA, you start going to the one that is your own. You're sanctioning the woman that brought illegitimate kids to the family. So I might as well just stay clear of all that and so on. So there's so many things that I said. I think if I have to start reeling everything out, man, I'm going to be here all day. So, but I am at peace.
At a stage,
right, but at peace.
Sorry, Kola, at a stage,
Yeah.
you attended a wedding in Zimbabwe of one of your brothers.
Yes.
In Zimbabwe. Ovation covered that wedding in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, I went, yes.
What happened that such a relationship no longer exists?
You know, I am as simple and as sincere as I can ever be. You've known me for how many years now? And I say it as I see it. When I come to you and I tell you exactly what I think it is, you do not listen. And instead, you use what I tell you against me. And I'm telling you out of sincerity. I'm telling you exactly what I will tell my own blood brother or sister. I'm telling you what I will do in that same situation myself. And I see that everything is treachery. So why waste my energy and time now? Why waste my energy and time? So I have a responsibility to the family. I can't be doing a back and forth. I did, you didn't do, you didn't listen, I didn't do that. It just creates sales for media and all that rubbish. I'm not into media. I'm not. I have a responsibility that's greater than me, my own branch, but for the collective good. And once I think I've been sincere enough and it's not appreciated, I let it go and I move on. I move on because, you see, we're not all kids anymore now. We're all grown up. My youngest sister, she'll be 49, I think. And every one of them, they're coming behind her. And every other one of them are coming behind her. Because not a single one is older than any one of us. So at what level should I stop? You know, it's like chasing after a madman and whatever. You get to a point that they won't know who's the madman as opposed to who is the same person. So I just you know.
What's the relationship like between you and your sister, Mrs. Kola, Abiola and Dele?
Very good question. I thought we used to have a good one, but I'm not sure we do it nowadays. But it's still those realities, you know. I don't hold any grudges. I never do because our kids are still the best of friends if I'm right. I've never told them, even in the past, I never get involved in that. The kids have their own life. They have their own life. They have their own. It's sort of like Tishonako and my dad. And after all that while, and everybody saying Deji and what's his name now? What's his name? Shonako's son, the first son. I forget his name now. Shouldn't be friends, or they shouldn't be his grooms, whatever. These guys have been friends all their lives. So my father is like, so what? Like, they're friends, they have their own lives to live. And that's how we do it. So.
Okay, you are talking about Deboye or.
Deboye, yeah, that's what Deboye.
Yes.
So they thought that MK was, like I said, the man has no hate in his system.
It was the same way they said you shouldn't be friends with Aisha Babangida.
Well, that, like I said, there are too many small minds out there, unfortunately. And actually, in our own part of the world, it's really, when you start going transgenerationally in your hate, at what point do you stop? At what point do you draw the line? How do you get prosperity going? How do you get unity going? How do you get peace in place? You'll never, because my dad it's good enough to know your enemies for what they are. Just leave them and move on. Now, if my kids have their own haters at their age, at their level, why should I want them to now take home their dads or their parents on haters along with their own haters there already. That doesn't make any sense. They have their own lives to live. Maybe they know and learn a few things. They come from an unbiased environment. Just keep it that way. Don't stain them because I have a grudge against your dad. I don't see your dad tomorrow. I just know my limits with him, but I won't not greet him. But do not add my palavas to their own. And they should, in their rightful minds, never take on their own, take on mine along with theirs. So that's my view to that. So.
Okay, let's now talk. We've been talking a lot about your dad, not naturally. So let's now talk about Abdulateef Kolawole Abiola.
Yes.
There is something I find, and I've found this for a long time, quite interesting about you. I remember when you had your daughter, Rabi Atu, who is my daughter as well,
Right.
And despite the fact that you grew up in Britain and the US, I think you had most of your kids in Nigeria, when you could afford to go to the best hospitals in the world. What informed that?
Well, we're Nigerians, right? And we honestly believe in the genius of Nigerians. We honestly believe, and I've grown up with parents that have led by example. In the ICT days, I remember very clearly, we had a lot of foreign engineers, okay, from America. The same thing with RCN when they were doing the dumpster days. But they were only here for a while our own staff were out there training, be it in Rochester or anywhere. And in the quickest possible time, my father would always replace them with Nigerians. He honestly believed in our ingenuity. I remember in Habib, the formula was to have a Pakistani MD, Nigerian DMD. It was going on like that for a while. Till he now said, hey, come, isn't it about time we have our own Nigerian MD? And ask at the board meeting, ask the DMD there, because the president, the MD then was about to finish his tour of duty. They were meant to replace him from Pakistan. But right there in the meeting, he asked the guy, come, Adam, can't you do what he's doing? Or is it doing anything differently that you can't handle? He said no. So everybody was shocked at the meeting. He said no. It's about time. We have learned enough. You guys have learned enough. It's about time you guys become MDs yourself. And that's how Adam Bello became MD of the first Nigerian MD of Big Bank. And then the DMD now became the Pakistan. So it's like that. And where I think it can be done, we should do it. Unfortunately, I must say that the system has left. How are you? That's simple. It's gotten to that point now when you could leave Ife and go to an MIT and they look at you as if you are a genius. Today you'll have to start from scratch. So, we've lost those things, and some of us have faith in making sure they happen, and that's always been the driving force as to why that happened back then. I didn't think there was a need to do what we can do at home. For sure, we should encourage us first, and that was the thought process.
Personally, would you ever consider going into politics?
I am in politics. I was from my dad's election. I have been a scholar ever since. I've been very observant and I've been studying it. Yes, I am from that perspective. Yes, I am in politics.
So, which one is your political party?
I'm not a carry member of any party. I'm not into political party. I'm not in party politics, put it that way.
So, will you go into party politics?
I don't know. I don't think so. Because you see, what I see right now, see, I did this in at a very tender, young age. And what I saw then hasn't changed now. What I saw then has gotten worse now. So we need a dynamic that totally disrupts the electoral process. We need to turn it on its head. If we're truly going to have change and good leadership in Nigeria, we really need to turn it on its head. We have to disrupt the whole process. And I think you won't get that in these parties of today. And congratulations, I hear you're back in PDP.
I was never in PDP. I've only just joined because I believe you can't play national politics from the local political parties. That's my view.
I think it's possible. I think it's possible. I think it can be done. It's just a game of numbers. If you can get the numbers out, you can change the system for sure. Yeah.
Well, that's yet to be seen. I would love to see that. Do you want to speak on that?
Yeah. You need to look. We have a youth population of what? 70%. In your register, your INEC register today is between 18 and 36, thereabouts. It's almost more than 50%. You had the last election of 29 million votes. Everybody comes to me and asks Kola, are you running for president? Are you running for president? You should run for president. You should run for president. You should do this. You should do that. But they forget that I'm going to be 60 next year. The responsibility is not mine. The responsibility is to that 18 to 36. They have to, and I challenge them, and I'm challenging them on this program today. It's not just good enough to have your voice heard, but your numbers must count. You know, a few years back they had this cold water challenge, where you had this hashtag cold water. I'm challenging them honestly to go out and register to make your numbers count. Register and show us the world or Nigeria that, okay, I don't know how you want to do it, maybe a hashtag, this is my PVC number or something. You have to go out. If you do not go out, you will never be able to change the system. The NSAS thing, honestly, I love the courage. I love the outrage and the courage in which these kids took. My kids were part of it. They were out there also. But you need an end game. The voice is heard from that. But maybe you should have another hashtag end game. And that end game, put your PVCs to it. Let us get out there and show them that the numbers count. Once we have the numbers, you will change the system. It's not about electing Kola. It's about electing people of your kind. And you can only do that with the numbers. How can we have an election in a state that the governor is elected by 102,000 votes, 250,000 votes? For God's sake, where's that mandate? When we have 50 million registered 18 to 36, the challenge is yours to go out there and show us that you can make that difference. Go out there and vote. Nobody can victimize you if you go out in numbers. Nobody. And the only way you can change the system is to go out there and vote. It's the only way. And you must vote in yourselves in numbers. Give faith to people who really want to make a change, to come out and actually participate in this process because they know you will come out and vote. Don't put them out there and don't go and support. You will scream, make the noise today. Tomorrow come election day, numbers will turn up. Why? The ones that are even registered don't even go and vote. It has to stop. It's your responsibility now, not mine. It's yours to make sure this thing changes. I can tell you how far we can go. I can support you, but you have to be out there to register and vote. Period.
Kola,
It's just
I want to take you to the US where you lived for so many years.
Yes.
The youth in the US will never think of forming new parties. They would operate within two existing parties. What they will do is when they support a Republican, they will proliferate the party or whatever and make sure they support the Republican candidate. When they are tired, they move to the other party, they choose a candidate. So do you think the proliferation of political parties in Nigeria is desirable, or you think we should operate within the two mainstream political parties? Because one of the things that I believe helped your dad was the fact that it was just a two-party, it was a straight battle between him and Alhaji Bashir Tofa.
Absolutely.
Yes. So
Absolutely.
if you're advising the youth to go and register, but without them operating within platforms and structures, it will still be a waste. Because you are going to have 40 presidential candidates, and then you are going to divide all their votes, while APC and PDP will retain their own regular voters.
I think you have it wrong, Dele. Today, we don't have two parties. We only have one party. Dele, we have a party of politicians. That's all. So there's room for another party, for sure. For sure. Look, Dele, the rate at which they cross from one party A to B is impunity. What is the difference between the two parties? I sat with a group of I won't tell you the party the other day, and trying to talk to me about politics, and I said, look, come. As far as I'm concerned, there's only one party. You were in party A the last I met you. Now you were in party A the last time I met you. You moved from A to B the last time I met you, and I told them, look, how am I not sure that come January, all of you, if not, there were 8 of us, if not 6 of you, if not all of you, would have moved back to APC, to the former party. That's it. They're all the same. They're just one party. That's all. So if these guys can prove to me they have the numbers, but of course another party can make it, for sure. Because at the end of the day, we're going to the point that we're no more voting party as such. We're voting for the credibility and the credibility of the candidate. That's what it's all about now. If they put their numbers behind a candidate, you will see that even from that so-called two parties or one party, as I call them, people are going to drift from there to come and vote for the appropriate person. That's what it's all about. They are the same. Call them whatever. And then elected on the manifest, and then they move to the next party tomorrow. Why? Because, come on.
You are talking ideology. Now I am talking strategy in terms of structures. In America, you will still have to operate within party
That's
A.
because you have a two-party structure there.
That's what I'm saying. So do you prefer this multi-party system, or would you rather go two parties?
Well, I rather have two parties, for sure.
Okay, now we have two parties. How do you now build a third party structure?
We don't have two parties, Dele. I keep telling you, you only have one party. Believe me, you only have one party. That leaves room for another party. to come up and come together with other parties to field a credible person to make a difference. Provided these kids, like I said, have that hashtag end game and their PPCs to go with it, you will see the difference.
Kola, let's be realistic.
Yeah.
The last time.
I am very realistic.
The last time we had Shure, we had Kingsley Mogalu, we had Tope Fasua, we had Alisa Shoyode, we had Feladru Tuyi, we had all the bright guys. They couldn't agree amongst themselves on one candidate. So how do you now deal with it?
That, you see, it's a system. The system is look, it's all in the quality and the credibility of the candidate. So for as long as your candidate is not seen as a unifying candidate, a unifying person, or seen across the land as a true Nigerian, all those would never work. They never work. Look, the problem we have at times is that we associate being brash and smart with maturity. That's not, and I thought they're leaders. No. Brashness is not being a leader. Smart doesn't necessarily make you one. Maturity is what makes you a leader. Maturity. And that's what you are missing, really. This is what they need to see. We all have to earn our take. These kids have to own the process. They have to own the process by feeling they've elected and they're involved and they're going to go and vote for what they believe in. That's what it's all about. And it's even more now than ever in Nigeria. If these kids, we have failed them. We have a country that has failed the youth totally. They don't have it. They didn't have faith in these names. That's probably why you had the outcome you had. And instead of us to come together and look at it differently, we still want. It's like what used to happen in the past. Before the two-party system, all the conservatives will come under one party. And then the progressives will now split themselves all over the place. That's what used to happen. So the conservatives vote as one entity. That's why you had a different identity entirely. They vote as one. The progressives now split everything and they end up being the minority. With the two-party system, the progressives were forced to come under one umbrella. And that's why they won. And it also was no mistake, also because they had, with an MKO as their presidential candidate, everybody saw him as a Nigerian, and they went out to vote. Even across party lines, they voted for him. That's what I'm talking about now. So as far as I'm concerned, PDP, APC, they're one party. Another party could spring up. If these guys just go and get their PPCs, you will see the difference. This is the time to change everything, or not.
I had the same conversation with my good friend, who I believed would have made a very good president in 2019, Donald Duke. And I can tell you, he was so sure about this third force, because what we are talking about here is a third force. I'll wait to see how this third force would emerge. Until that happens, we're stuck for now with APC and PDP. Until you have the third force. How do you react to ethnic, religious politics in Nigeria? Because even in NBA, Nigerian Bar Association, once my brother, who is my neighbor, Olumide Akpata emerged the other day, some people threatened in the north that they were creating their own bar association. And that is just in a professional setting. How do you deal with ethnic and religious, politics?
You can expect that because they haven't woken up to the reality on ground. How did Olumide win that election? Was it the elder lawyers and the Gray and the Sons? No. It's these numbers I'm telling you about that voted in now, and because they had a voting system that allowed it to. And he mobilized the younger lawyers whose interests were never, ever been taken care of. That's how we won. And that's the same system that will win a proper person in Nigeria today. For as long as these kids register, if they register and they have their go from voice to the numbers to count. Huh. The system is in a serious shock.
Will you be
And
willing? Will you be willing?
The MBA is a perfect example of what I'm saying.
Yeah. So will you be willing to stand and organize a thought force?
No, I've said that before in the past, that I'm committed to making sure that change comes. I've said that with the launch of Tribe Nigeria. I said that the app was meant to get us talking to each other from all spheres. Because look, at the end of the day, we come from different parts of Nigeria, but we have a common problem in Nigeria: is leadership. At the end of the day, you may think I'm better off in Lagos as opposed to the guy in Sokoto. But if you look at what is available in Lagos and what you should be getting based on what's available in Lagos, your Sokoto guy is probably better off than the Lagosian, based on the little money he's getting. So, for me, it's all about leadership at the end of the day. So when we start talking, you will see that, look, we have all these things in common. We will. And that's what I've made myself, I've committed myself to doing that, to make sure. And the only way I can make that difference if I can get these kids to go and register. Like I said, end game. If they don't vote, nothing will change. But if they come and have mass, you will see what's going to happen. They can't be bought because they're sick and tired of it. They can't live in a bubble. The bubble they have created for themselves is called Nigeria. Nigeria is still a bubble. It's still in Nigeria. Your kids go to school abroad, my kids go abroad. We have to come and deal with it. They have to come home now. We have failed them totally. We are caught them in the street because they dress funny. What does that have to do with what? We look down on them. We don't give them education. There's nothing to look forward to. And you tell me that they won't take the views they take, but of course. But they also need to come together and start changing that by voting and register themselves to vote.
Now, let's talk about what I know you love doing, mountain climbing.
Oh, yes.
So is there anyone you are yet to climb?
Yes, inshallah, I'm going to do Everest next year.
You are going to Mount Everest?
Everest, yeah, next
at
year.
60?
I'm going to yeah, that's my birthday present. And then from there, I go to Hajj, inshallah.
So are you already training for that?
Oh, yeah, I am. People see me jogging around and walking around and think this guy must be nuts, but I'm doing my homework.
How did you come into mountain climbing, and do you find it extremely risky to your life?
I came into mountain climbing out of love for my late daughter. On Thursday, it was 14 years she passed away. And shortly before she passed on, we were talking about my upcoming birthday. And some documentary on Kilimanjaro came up, and she was like, "Dad, I think you could try that." I said, "No, it's something to look into." I'm kind of left it at that. A few months, she passes away. And that pain was eating me up. She was fantastic. Labake was a fantastic child. That pain was eating me up so much that I really don't know how, I didn't know how to deal. I've been brought up to be strong and before everybody, but this one hit me bad. And it just occurred to me one day working in Boston that, you know what, yeah, maybe if I do this for her, maybe I'll have some escape. I'll have a way of escaping or release. That's what I'm looking for. So I just walked into a store, EMS, and said, "Look, guys, I'm going to Kilimanjaro. I want the best possible gear and everything." put it together, and I went. Never done it in my life. And then that was my first go at it. So I went. I didn't make it to the top. I came close, but I didn't make it to the top. And I broke down crying that day because I really wanted to do it for her. So a few months later, now that I knew what to expect, I packed my gear again and went. And this time, alhamdulillah, I made it. Went back a second time. At that time, did it, made it. And then from there, I've been going all over the place doing it. And anything you do is going to be dangerous. Even if you're playing football, it could be dangerous. So, but for me, mountain climbing brings me closer to 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 being real. You carry your backpack, you sleep in the, you have time to yourself in the evenings after a long hike, and you get to reflect on a lot of things. And I tend to want to do that as often as I can. Hopefully, I'll scale Everest. And when I do that, I don't know what I'll do next. Maybe I'll find a bigger challenge. Something I don't know what yet. But you know, it's as I said. What I tell you, I've been humbled in my life. It's incredible. I lost my father-in-law on my birthday. Like I said, my mom died. Was 49 years on Wednesday. My daughter was 14 years on Thursday. My father-in-law was 3 years on Friday, back to back. My dad passed away at 60. My mom at 54. My wife was 72. Ike was what? Ike was not, it was 48 or something. It's just crazy. I don't know. It just so climbing helps me. It helps me just I bottle up so much that doing that, and it helps with my release. It helps with me coming. I don't think I'll ever come to terms with all these things, but it's part of my own healing process.
Wow. May Nabake's soul continue to rest in peace. Before I go, I was hoping we would do just 2 hours, but it's been a very rich and robust encounter. There is something I've always wanted to ask you. I know many rich kids, and they find it difficult accepting non-biological people into their family. Your dad welcomed me into the family, and you also welcomed me. You bought me my first car. I mean, how were you able to manage that? You couldn't be bothered that I was already close to your dad. I was very close to you. You heard that I lost my job and I needed a car. Chichi Belongu told you I must thank her. I continue to thank her every day for letting you know. And you bought me my first car when you were under 30. How did that happen?
Alhamdulillah. Like I keep telling you, Dele, I started off from very humble beginnings, and I never forgot that. I went to school in Aito. It was people, even I think if I'm right, the guard's son was in my class, and we were friends. We all came from different works, family lives, different parts of Western Nigeria back then. You couldn't tell a difference. We all related very well. My parents, no matter who they are, I've never looked down on anybody before. So where am I going to get the odd example from? I don't know. That's just what I am, and that's who I am. If I have 10 naira, if you have a problem, I may not be able to solve it, but I'll give you the 1 naira out of the 10 I have. I don't know. It's just that's why people like me will never be rich. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, you are already rich by by God's grace. You are very, very, very comfortable.
You know, I don't know how do I answer that. I just know that, like my dad would say, it's you. You have to be in a position to lift your environment. You can't be the only arrowhead, because if you lift your environment, we collectively carry the burden. If I'm the only one and everybody's coming to me, I'm not government. But if you leave the environment around you along with you, they will take care of some things also that don't have to come to you. And I'm a strong believer in that. But for me, it's friendship first and foremost. What we do for each other is because we can do it, but the friendship first and foremost is more important. And for me, that's it. It's a friendship first and foremost. I relate to everybody. I will always relate to you, Apa. And my views could be strong at times. Yeah, my voice could be loud at times. Not because I'm trying to shut you down or because I think you're any lesser than I am, but I'm just a passionate person about what I think and what I believe. And my passion comes through in all ways. You look at my face at times, you can always tell this guy has a lot going on in his head. But it's
Wow.
that's it.
Thank you, Kola. Thank you so much. Before we go, one of the things I want to teach for the rest of my life is the art and science of gratitude. And I want to say a whole load of gratitude to you. There are 3 other things you did, and I have the opportunity to say it publicly today because we live in an era where people are too shy to admit that some people helped them get to where they are, and you are one of those who helped me. The second one was after you bought the car, I wanted to start a magazine called Ovation in 1991. And I approached you, came with my proposal to your house in Anthony Village, and you looked at it, you liked it, and you told me, oh, I like it, it looks good, but I won't be able to invest in it. And I said, why not? If you like it, why not? He said, oh, I don't like to compete with my dad. That touched me. And you could see I was very disappointed because you were my last hope. And you didn't want me to leave with that disappointment. And you said, is there nothing else we can do together apart from a publication? And I said, like what? He said, like public relations. And I said, of course, that's my first love. And on the spot, you gave me the account for Summit Oil International to manage, despite the fact that you had instructions from chairman to get some other company. I will never forget that. And we did that job. And you told me to bring an invoice. And when I brought the invoice, initially you said you were going to reduce it officially. But by the time we finished the job, you were so excited, you approved the entire invoice and brought your own personal check and gave me extra money. I'll never forget that day. Thank you, Kola.
Alhamdulillah, thank you.
The third one for me was more emotional. I was going to London in November 1992 The flight was delayed, British Airways to Gatwick. And lo and behold, 3 of you came on board. They had delayed the flight for yourself, Deji, and Abiola. And unknown to me, you were actually going to see your mom for the last time. And when we landed at Gatwick, we took the Gatwick Express to Victoria Station. And while on the train, you asked me if I had an account at NatWest, number 266 Pentonville Avenue in King's Cross. And you sent £2,000. Your mom was just about to pass on, and you still have time to send money to a friend. How would you be able to do such? I'm sure you probably don't even remember, but that is what you did. And the last one was my wedding, which coincided with your mom's 40th day. And you know how it goes with Muslims, with prayers and everything. And not only did your dad come, and my wife was handed over to your dad, you also came to Ijebu that night. In the middle of the night, you came to support me. Kola, I can never forget those deeds. May God bless you and your family.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Well, Dele, for me, whatever it is I do or have done, not just for you, but for any other person, Wallah, it's just strictly visibility. Because I believe that if it's in the reverse, you will do same for me. I didn't know, I see scenarios and I didn't know anything, but I did what I had to do. And I don't even when they get to become something, I don't even remember that I did anything. And then to go and even knock on their doors and say, you know what, pay back time. I don't even remember. They end up reminding me because I do it, like I said, visibility. And that's always helped me all my life. So I thank God for that. I thank God for faith. And like they say, Ani Terawa Adeni Jarawa Loju.
Amen.
Thank you.
Kola, on this note, we must say good night to our viewers. I can tell you, this has been the mother of all interviews, and I thank you for agreeing to come on this platform. Thank you so much, Kola. And thanks
Thank you.
to your team at Tribes Niger. I think they should follow them, and everybody should follow your hashtag Endgame. And let's hope we can change Nigeria together. Thank you and good night. God bless you all. Thank you, Kola.
I'll give you the challenge and let us rise up to it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm very grateful. Thank you so much. Thank you. Good night, everybody. Good night. My team at Ovation Television, thank you for your support. Benjamin Osei, the young Ghanaian man who's been very, very wonderful. My personal assistant, Babatunde Martins, thank you so much. You are up this late in my apartment just because we wanted to make sure nothing goes wrong. Thank you, Kola, and God bless you all. Thank you. Good night.
God bless.
Thank you.
Good night.